Hello, Shay. Welcome. Hello, Chris. Good to see you on with us. Hello, Karuna. We'll get started in a few minutes. Hello, Maria. Hello, Jay. Chris, somebody downvoted already? Wow. Always nice to have that notification. Thank you, Chris. You know, you don't see it much. You don't see it much during Dhammapalooza, but in the morning when we do morning monastery experience, we get bots and people, wacky people and bots, and most of them they're probably not real people, but we get that kind of stuff, spammers all the time, all the time. So, but it doesn't tend to happen during Dhammapalooza. All right, we'll get started in about a minute. The interesting thing about the YouTube algorithm is that YouTube actually doesn't like live stream videos. It likes uploaded videos. when I started making all those old clips that I haven't made public yet, when I started like once a day making them public, YouTube all of a sudden like new people was finding my channel and all kinds of things like that. YouTube likes when you upload videos. It doesn't like when you stream so much. Hello, Jayantha. Welcome. All right, let's share screen. Metta Nisangsa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Evang me sutang ekang samayang bhagava savatiyang viharati jetavane anatapinda kasa arame tatrako bhagava bhikkhu amantesi bhikkhavoti badante tite bhikkhu bhagavato pachasso sung bhagava etadavocha mettaya bhikkave chetu vimuttiya asevataya bhavitaya bahulikataya Yani kataya vatu kataya anutitaya parichitaya susamaradaya ekas dasa anisangsa patikanka katame ekadasa sukang supati sukang patibujjati napapakang supinang passati manusanang piyohoti amanusanang piyohoti devatara kanti nasa aggiva visangva sattangva kamati tuvatang chittang samadhyati mukha vanno vipasidati asamulo kalang karoti utarang vapattaja vittanto brahmalo kupaggo hoti mettaya bhikkave cheto vimuttiya asevataya bhavitaya bahulikataya yanikataya vattukataya antuttitaya parichittaya susamaradhanaya me ekadasani sangsa patikankati idangavocha bhagava attamanate bhikkhu bhagavato basitung abhinandunti. The discourse on the benefits of loving friendliness. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Sublime One was living in Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, in the park of Anathapindika. There the Sublime One addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, they replied, the Sublime One said this. Bhikkhus, there are 11 benefits from the practice of loving friendliness that arise from the emancipation of the heart. If repeated, developed, made much of, made a habit of, made a basis of, experienced, practice well undertaken, 11 benefits are expected. What 11? One sleeps well, one gets up well, one does not have nightmares, one is pleasing to human beings, one is pleasing to non-human beings. The deities protect one. Neither fire nor poison nor a weapon affect one. One's mind becomes calm immediately. One's complexion brightens. One dies without confusion. And beyond that, if one does not comprehend the highest, one goes to the world of the Brahmas. Bhikkhus, these are the 11 benefits from the practice of loving friendliness that arise from the emancipation of the heart. If repeated, developed, made much of, made a habit of, made a basis of, experienced, practice well begun, these 11 benefits are expected. And thus spoke the Sublime One, delighted, those bhikkhus rejoiced in what the Sublime One had said. Alright friends, well it is Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and that means it's time for another Dhammapalooza, the festival of Dhamma with the Magasegi community that we do together, where we do a variety of different related Dhamma activities. We did some chanting, later on we'll do some meditation. In between, who knows? That's because each Dhammapalooza is community guided. We never know if there's going to be a Dhammapalooza where it's mostly questions and answers, or perhaps no questions and we read suttas, or do any other kind of activities. So for the next couple of minutes in the chat, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, you can put those in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like me to give a talk on, you can put those in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like the community to discuss, you can put those in the chat. Or if nobody has any questions or topics, well, there's always a sutta for us to read. Maybe some sutta or word roulette as well. But we'll see how that goes. But for the next couple of minutes in the chat, I'll see what pops up. I do have to say, it's wonderful to see our friend Shay. Many of you might not know Shay. Some of you do. But Shay was one of the three amigos who helped build the Discord back in the day. Maybe some of you know Reed, maybe many of you know Adriana, and Shay was the third. So it's nice to have Shay back after a couple years. It's always good to see old friends again. And now not in Eastern Europe, so she can not have to be up late to attend events and things like that. So good to see you again, Shay. It's also good to see Chris back. I know Chris kind of comes and goes here and there. It's good to see Chris with us tonight. So. Yes, as you might have noticed, the Discord is rather quiet these days. We don't need too many. We don't have any really mods. We don't need too many mods. And our one mod is perhaps going somewhere soon. We'll have to see. But, all right. Hello, Gretchen. Good to see you. Ah, Jay, this is a good question. It really is. Jay, what do you think about fire poison and weapons not affecting one as mentioned in that sutta? Is it perhaps saying it's less likely to be harmed when you have metta? So, there's different perceptions of this. Bhante Gunaratana says that this fire, poison, and sword here means like greed, hatred, and delusion can't touch you. And I'm not a big fan of that, but I think it's Bhante trying to kind of make it not so literal for Westerners. I'm not sure. I've never heard anybody else say that besides Bhante Gunaratana. Nor do I think this means that you somehow become Superman, like, bullets and arrows and things just kind of bounce off your chest like you're impervious. Hello, Rick. How I understand this and how I read this is that when you practice lots of metta and you live in metta, you become one who is dear to human beings, dear to non-human beings. People trust you. They like you. You don't do any bad deeds that would cause people to not like you, to want revenge on you, etc., etc. And so, with all of that together, especially when you're in person with somebody and they can feel the power of your metta, you can disarm even some people who are kind of bent on violence and things like that. I would stake my own life on it. Would I stake other people's life on it? No, I don't know. But I would stake my own life on the power of metta in that way. Just because I've seen it enough. I've seen what metta do some weird stuff enough that I believe it's very, very powerful. And so what the way I read this is that it's not that you become impervious to fire, poison and weapons. It's that they will be, somebody who would use those on you would be very, very rare. Not impossible. I mean, even there's people that tried to kill the Buddha, right? Like Devadatta and things like that. So even the Buddha had people who was malicious towards him. But it's going to be a very rare chance, I think, if you practice lots of metta. I think you're able to disarm people in a deep way when you engage with them in a kind of basis of goodwill and friendliness. So yeah, that's what I would say. It means that you're much, much, much less likely to have anybody who would want to harm you. Hello, Rick. Bante, can you talk a bit about how to keep old age, sickness, and death in mind every day? I try to do daily remembrance practice, but every few days it comes too familiar and I tend to skip it. Yeah, you have to, you have to, you know, um, mix it up a little bit. It's not, if you're just saying the words can get stale. You add visuals, add contemplation. I may die today. And you think about all the different ways you may die. Or I, when I get old, I might lose my eyesight or lose my hearing or so you're covering different aspects and different bases that will allow you to kind of keep it fresh. There is such a thing of like, if you're doing something over and over and over and over and over again, your mind also is kind of like, I can remember this. We've done this, every day for, I don't know, a year, 2 years or whatever. I can remember this. But even still, there's a bit of a delusion in there. There's truth to that, but there's also delusion. So changing up the reflection, adding, to the visualizations and the contemplations can help with that. And also kind of seeking out old age, sickness, and death. Not just in something you're repeating and saying, but like trying to see it in the world. Like today, when I go out, I'm going to have my mind tuned to see old age. And then as you're going, you're in the store, whatever, you start to see very easily older people. And you watch how they're moving around and their limitations and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I would say. Cover other angles, keep it fresh. Try different visualizations and contemplations. Try to see it in reality in your life. And then it can stick with you. Karuna, talking about the fire, poison, and sword, says, I think it also means the other people directing harmful actions to you can't cause you to harm your practice, especially your bodily actions, but even your mental, like the simile of the saw. Yeah, and also like the Karani Metta Sutta, right? You protect your mind state of metta like a mother protects her only child. So if you're very skilled at metta, you're able to protect that mind state and to cultivate and to keep that mind state even through very hard situations. Hello, Robin. Welcome. Welcome. This is your first time, as you say. So what we do here at Dhammapalooza is if you have any questions, you're free to ask them. And if there's no questions, we read suttas and do different things. I'll keep an eye out on the chat to see if anything comes up. And if not, we can read a sutta. Nothing specific today. Dhammapalooza is kind of open-ended. The people who attend Dhammapalooza determine what is happening. Chris says, Bante, are there any suttas about dispelling nightmares? Been suffering some pretty awful ones these past few nights. Not really. The Buddha very rarely talks about dreams. Very rarely. You have, one of the few examples we just chanted, right? The 11 benefits of metta. One goes to bed, peacefully. One wakes up peacefully, and one sees no evil dreams. So that's part of your answer right there, practicing lots of metta. The second thing would be to kind of reflect on, well, what part of the dreams, if they have a similar theme, what is they kind of pointing you to? Do you have fears and anxieties of uncertainty in the future, or something important coming up, or important decision, life-changing thing, etc.? Right, this is something to reflect on, because maybe it's something you need to think about more in your waking hours, so you don't have to dream about it. Or maybe it's past trauma that you need to address in some form. There could be a variety of reasons for nightmares. Perhaps, yeah, I would say there is some truth to this. Jay, like if you have metta for yourself, you won't poison yourself with alcohol or drugs or do harmful actions to others that will ultimately harm yourself. Within the limit of your wisdom, right? If you have harmful habitual tendencies, even when you do kind of practice lots of metta and you kind of know what you're doing is harmful, sometimes you just can't stop doing it. Or you have very little ability to use willpower to stop over a long period of time. So it's not necessarily that just because you have lots of metta, you won't do things that are harmful to yourself. And in those times, it's actually important to practice metta for yourself, to recognize your limitations. Mostly from past trauma. Well, maybe this trauma needs to be addressed in some way. Some kind of therapeutic thing, some kind of reflection, Trauma is like an open wound. And the job of the person who has the trauma is to go through the process of healing it and closing it. Or else it's just an open wound that will keep coming, that will just keep festering, keep causing problems. Would love to hear anyone's experience with Precept 7. Is that the Nachigita Vadata Visuka Dasana? The no garlands and entertainments and things like that? I don't know them by a number. I'm assuming based on the context of what you're saying. So I could only play white noise on the ride home instead of podcasts. I realized I just wanted sound barrier on the train, not constant entertainment. Yeah, it's it's interesting. Like when I would go to Bhavana, it's a 5-hour drive, and I would have, um, I like to listen to a lot of talk radio back in the day. So I'd have talk radio on. I'd play some music. I'd have play some Ajahn Brahm talks or whatever while I'm driving. And I remember one time I said, you know what? I'm going to do it where I'm not going to have anything on for 5 hours. I'm just going to be completely mindful for 5 hours. And it was tough. It was tough, but I did it. It was quite an interesting experience to be able to do that. I think it's a matter of getting used to it, and it's a matter of kind of engaging the mind in mindful investigation instead of kind of some kind of a distraction. Now you said you're on a public transportation, so I could see why you might want to have some white noise. Or you could just be practicing lots of metta and kind of, look around at everybody in your public transport and to have some goodwill and good feelings. Or you could always look out the window. But that's also a distraction. But every time I fly, I like to have a window seat because I could go for 5 or 6 hours just looking out the window the whole time. I love it. Been doing that since I was a kid, so it's a very peaceful, wonderful thing. Of course, I also do like contemplations of like, if the plane had decompression right now and I fell out, what would I be doing in my last minute and a half before I hit the ground? Like, how would I go out? Like it's a really good contemplation. I quite like doing it. Hello, Yankee. Welcome. Oh, hello, Julie. Hello, Monte, and everyone. With 8 precepts, is lotion considered an ointment? Is non-scented lotion okay for meditation rituals? No. This is like putting like nicely scented ones where you want to go out to the festival or attract a mate or whatever. This is like having lotion for dry skin or something like that. That's fine. That would be considered medical. I think if you're going on a retreat, non-scented would be good because you don't know how other people will react to scents. You might have some poor person like me who hates incense and like really kind of has like nauseating things about like strong scents about things. I can't stand incense, and so like going on retreat, if I don't have to deal with those kind of things, is kind of nice. So yeah, non-scented for a retreat would be probably best. But I don't think any retreat center would say no, you can't use lotion. All right, I'll give it another minute to see if anything pops up in the chat, and then if not, we can read some suttas. We will read Majjhima Nikaya number 60. Unfailing. Apannaka Sutta. So I have heard. At one time the Buddha was wandering in the land of the Kosalans, together with a large sangha of mendicants, when he arrived at the village of the Kosalan Brahmins named Sala. The Brahmins and householders of Sala heard, "It seems the ascetic Gotama, a Sakyan gone forth from a Sakyan family, wandering in the land of the Kosalans, has arrived at Sala, together with a large sangha of mendicants. He has this good reputation. That blessed one is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. He has realized with his own insight this world with its gods, Mara and Brahmas, this populations with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans, and he makes it known to others. He teaches Dhamma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, meaningful and well phrased. And he reveals a spiritual practice that's entirely full and pure." It's good to see such perfected ones. Then the Brahmins and householders of Sala went up to the Buddha. Before sitting down to one side, some bowed, some exchanged greetings and polite conversation. Some held up their joined palm towards the Buddha, some announced their name and clan, while some kept silent. The Buddha said to them, "So, householders, is there any teacher you're happy with, in whom you have acquired grounded faith?" "No, sir." "Since you haven't found a teacher you're happy with, you should undertake and implement this unfailing teaching. For when the unfailing teaching is undertaken, it will be for your lasting welfare and happiness." And what is the unfailing teaching? There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine in view. There's no meaning in giving sacrifice or offerings, so this is the list of wrong views. There's no fruit or result of good or bad deeds. There's no afterlife. There's no such thing as mother and father, or beings that are reborn spontaneously. And there's no ascetic or Brahmin who is rightly comported and rightly practiced, or who has described the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. And there are some ascetics and Brahmins whose doctrine directly contradicts this. They say, there is meaning in giving sacrifice and offerings. There are fruits and results of good and bad deeds. There is an afterlife. There are such things as mother and father, and beings that are reborn spontaneously. And there are ascetics and Brahmins who are rightly comported and rightly practiced, and who describe the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. What do you think, householders? Don't these doctrines directly contradict each other? Yes, sir. Since this is so, consider those ascetics and Brahmins whose view is that there's no meaning in giving, etc. You can expect that they will reject good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and undertake and implement bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Why is that? Because those ascetics and Brahmins don't see that unskillful qualities are full of drawbacks, sordidness, and corruption, or that skillful qualities have the benefit and cleansing power of renunciation. Moreover, since there actually is another world, their view that there is no other world is wrong view. Since there is actually another world, their thought that there is no other world is wrong thought. Since there actually is another world, their speech that there is no other world is wrong speech. Since there actually is another world, in saying that there is no other world, they contradict those perfected ones who know the other world. Since there actually is another world, in convincing another that there is no other world, they are convincing them to accept an untrue teaching. And on account of that, they glorify themselves and put others down. So they give up their former ethical conduct and are established in unethical conduct. And that is how these many bad, unskillful qualities come to be, with wrong view as condition. Wrong view, wrong thought, wrong speech, contradicting the noble ones, convincing others to accept untrue teachings, and glorifying oneself and putting others down. A sensible person reflects on this matter in this way. If there is no other world, when this individual's body breaks up, they will keep themselves safe. And if there is another world, when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. But let us grant that those who say that there is no other world are correct. Regardless, that individual is still criticized by sensible people in the present life as being an immoral individual of wrong view, a nihilist. But if there really is another world, they hold a losing hand on both counts. For they are criticized by sensible people in the present life, and when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. So some of you might be recalling that this is very similar to the assurances given by the Buddha in the Kesaputtiya Sutta, or what most people know as the Kalama Sutta, right? Where the people in Kalama are very confused because teachers are telling them conflicting things. They don't know who to believe. And the Buddha says it's right that you don't know, because it's very confusing, and you have the famous line of don't go by hearsay or what you hear or read, or that because your teacher's good at speaking, etc., etc., etc. That is, most people know that one, but at the second part of that, the Buddha gives these 4 assurances. And we're going over essentially these assurances here in the sutta as well. So the Buddha is basically saying, like, if you act like an idiot, if you act unskillfully, and let's even say that there is nothing after this life, still in this life, people will know you as an immoral, horrible person. You will still be known as somebody who has a wrong view and who has no real good benefit to others, right? And who will do wrong things. And this is why it says, but if there really is another world, they hold the losing hand, like gambling, right? Like they're playing cards. They hold a losing hand on both counts. For they are criticized by sensible people in the present life, and when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. They have wrongly undertaken this unfailing teaching in such a way that it encompasses the positive outcomes of one side only, leaving out the skillful premise. Since this is so, consider those ascetics and Brahmins whose view is that there is meaning in giving, etc. You can expect that they will reject bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and undertake and implement good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Why is that? Because those ascetics and Brahmins see that unskillful qualities are full of drawbacks, sordidness, and corruption, and that skillful qualities have the benefiting cleansing power of renunciation. Moreover, since there actually is another world, their view that there is another world is right view. Since there actually is another world, their thought that there is another world is right thought. And since there actually is another world, their speech that there is another world is right speech. Since there actually is another world, and saying that there is another world, they don't contradict these perfected ones who know know the other world. Since there actually is another world, in convincing another that there is another world, they are convincing them to accept a true teaching. And on account of that, they don't glorify themselves or put others down. So they give up their former unethical conduct and are established in ethical conduct. And that is how these many skillful qualities come to be, with right view as condition. Right view, right thought, right speech, not contradicting the noble ones, convincing others to accept true teachings and not glorifying oneself or putting others down. A sensible person reflects on this matter in this way. If there is another world, when the individual's body breaks up, after death they will be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. But let us grant that those who say that there is no other world are correct. Regardless, that individual is still praised by sensible people in the present life after being a moral individual of right view who affirms a positive teaching. So if there really is another world, they hold a perfect hand on both counts. For they are praised by sensible people in the present life, and when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. They have rightly undertaken this unfailing teaching in such a way that it encompasses the positive outcomes of both sides, leaving out unskillful premise. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine in view. The one who acts does nothing wrong when they punish, mutilate, torture, aggrieve, oppress, intimidate, or when they encourage others to do the same. They do nothing wrong when they kill, steal, break into houses, plunder wealth, steal from isolated buildings, commit highway robbery, commit adultery, and lie. If you were to reduce all living creatures of this earth to one heap and mass of flesh with a razor-edged chakram, no evil comes of that, and no outcome of evil. If you were to go along the south bank of the Ganges, killing, mutilating, and torturing, and encouraging others to do the same, no evil comes of that, and no outcome of evil. If you were to go along the north bank of the Ganges, giving and sacrificing and encouraging others to do the same, no merit comes of that, and no outcome of merit. In giving, self-control, restraint, and truthfulness, there is no merit or outcome of merit. And there are some ascetics and Brahmins whose doctrine directly contradicts this. They say, the one who acts does a bad deed when they punish, mutilate, torture, grieve, oppress, intimidate, or when they encourage others to do the same. They do a bad deed when they kill, steal, break into houses, plunder wealth, steal from isolated buildings, commit highway robbery, commit adultery, and lie. If you were to reduce all the living creatures of this earth to one heap, and mass of flesh with a razor as chakram, evil comes of that, and an outcome of evil. If you were to go along the south bank of the Ganges, killing, mutilating, and torturing, and encouraging others to do the same, evil comes of that, and an outcome of evil. If you were to go along the north bank of the Ganges, giving and sacrificing and encouraging others to do the same, merit comes of that, and an outcome of merit. In giving, self-control, restraint, and truthfulness, there is merit and outcome of merit. What do you think, householders? Don't these doctrines directly contradict each other? Yes, sir. Since this is so, consider those ascetics and Brahmins whose view is that the one who acts does nothing wrong when they punish, etc. You can expect that they will reject good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and undertake and implement bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Why is that? Because those ascetics and Brahmins don't see that unskillful qualities are full of drawbacks, sordidness, and corruption. or that skillful qualities have a benefit of cleansing power of renunciation. Moreover, since action actually does have an effect, their view that action is ineffective is wrong view. Since action actually does have an effect, their thought that action is ineffective is wrong thought. Since action actually does have an effect, their speech that action is ineffective is wrong speech. Since action actually does have an effect, in saying that action is ineffective, they contradict those perfected ones who teach that action is effective. Since action actually does have an effect, in convincing others that action is ineffective, they are convincing them to accept an untrue teaching, and on that account they glorify themselves and put others down. So they give up their former ethical conduct and establish an unethical conduct. And that is how these many bad, unskillful qualities come to be, with wrong view as condition. Wrong view, wrong thought, wrong speech, contradicting the noble ones, convincing others to accept untrue teachings, and glorifying oneself and putting others down. A sensible person reflects on this matter in this way. If there is no effective action, when this individual's body breaks up, they will keep themselves safe. And if there is effective action, when this body breaks up, after death they will be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. But let's grant that those who say there is no effective action. So when we're talking about effective action, this is karma, right? The Buddha is talking about karma here. Let's grant that those who say there is no karma are correct. Regardless, that individual is still criticized by sensible people in the present life as being an immoral individual of wrong view, one who denies the efficacy of action. But if there really is effective action, they hold a losing hand on both counts. For they are criticized by sensible people in the present life, and when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. They have wrongly undertaken this unfailing teaching in such a way that it encompasses the positive outcomes of one side only, leaving out the skillful premise. Since this is so, consider those ascetics and Brahmins whose view is that the one who acts does a bad deed when they punish. You can expect that they will reject bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and undertake and implement good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Why is that? Because those ascetics and Brahmins see the unskillful qualities are full of drawbacks, sordidness, and corruption, and that skillful qualities have the benefit and cleansing power of renunciation. Moreover, since action actually does have an effect, their view that action is effective is right view. Their thought that action is effective is right thought. Their speech that action is effective is right speech. Since action actually does have an effect, and saying action is effective, they don't contradict those perfected ones. Since action actually does have an effect in convincing others that action is effective, they are convincing them to accept the true teaching, and on that account they don't glorify themselves or put others down. So they give up their former unethical conduct and are established in ethical conduct. This is an interesting thing here about when the teaching is true. On account of that, they don't glorify themselves or put others down. What does this mean? If your teaching is true and you don't have to convince people by way of your prowess as a teacher, this is called, this is a fallacy, where just because somebody is a quote-unquote expert, or they prop themselves up as somebody who knows what they're talking about, then that just that means that you should accept it as true. Right? And so the Buddha is saying, if this is a truth, if these are true and people can in their own experience see this for true, you don't need to glorify, you don't need to prop yourself up to make it easier to convince others of what you're trying to say. The teaching is speaking for itself. Right? So you don't have to glorify others, nor do you have to glorify yourself, prop yourself up, nor do you have to lower others to convince other people. That's what this meaning is here. So they give up their former unethical conduct and are established in ethical conduct. And that is how these many skillful qualities come to be, with right view as condition, right view, right thought, right speech, not contradicting the noble ones, convincing others to accept true teachings, and not glorifying oneself or putting others down. A sensible person reflects on this matter in this way. If there is effective action when this individual's body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. Let us grant that those who say there is no effective action is correct. Grant that those who say there is no effective action are correct. Regardless, that individual is still praised by sensible people in the present life as being a moral individual of right view, who affirms the efficacy of action. If so, there really is an effective action. They hold a perfect hand on both counts. For they are praised by sensible people in the present life, and when their body breaks up after death, they will be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. They have rightly undertaken this unfailing teaching in such a way that it encompasses positive outcomes on both sides, leaving out unskillful premises. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have the doctrine in view there is no cause or reason for the corruption of sentient beings. Sentient beings are corrupted without cause or reason. There is no cause or reason for the purification of sentient beings. Sentient beings are purified without cause or reason. There is no power, no energy, no human strength or vigor. All sentient beings, all living creatures, all beings, all souls lack control, power, and energy, molded by destiny, circumstance, and nature. They experience pleasure and pain in the 6 classes of rebirth. And there are some ascetics and Brahmins whose doctrine directly contradicts this. They say there is a cause and reason for the corruption of sentient beings and for the purification of sentient beings. So if you believe that there is no reason why somebody is purified or corrupted, then you're essentially denying dependent origination, right? This is wrong view in terms of Buddhism, right? And what you're also denying is it's a kind of fatalistic determination that, well, I was born corrupted, I can't do anything about it. I was born pure, I don't have to do anything about it. Right? So again, the Buddha is saying that these views will not lead to skillfulness. Sentient beings are purified with cause and reason. There is power, energy, human strength, and vigor. It is not the case that sentient beings, all living creatures, all beings, all souls lack control, power, and energy, or that, molded by destiny, circumstances, and nature, they experience a pleasure and pain in the 6 classes of rebirth. What do you think? Do these directly contradict each other? So in the essence of time, I'm going to start ellipsing things because essentially this is a new set, but it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same framework. And the framework is going to be, even granted that the people who don't believe it, you will grant them that they don't believe it, still in this very life, they'll be not seen in a very positive light. And if it's true, then they will have caused themselves great harm in future lives. All right. Continuing on to the next section, there are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine in view. There are no totally formless states of meditation. There are some ascetics and Brahmins whose doctrinally directly contradict this. They say there are totally formless states of meditation. What do you think? Don't these contradict each other? And then the same framework. Oh no, maybe not the same framework. We'll continue on here. Yes, sir. A sensible person reflects on this matter in this way. Some ascetics and Brahmins say that there is no totally formless meditations, but I've not seen that. Some ascetics and Brahmins say that there are totally formless meditations, but I've not known that. Without knowing or seeing, it will be not appropriate for me to take one side and declare this is the only truth. Other ideas are silly. That's important. Isn't that so important, right? This person says this. I don't know if that's true. This person says that. I've not seen this for myself. So it will be kind of silly for me to say that's true, that's false. Right? This is the only truth. All other ideals are silly. If those ascetics and Brahmins who say that there are no totally formless meditations are correct, it's possible I will be unfailingly reborn among the gods who possess form and made of mind. If those ascetics and Brahmins who say that there are totally formless meditations are correct, it's possible I will be unfailingly reborn among the gods who are formless and made of perception. Now, owing to form, bad things are seen, taking up the rod and the sword, quarrels, arguments, and disputes, accusations, divisive speech, and lies. But those things don't exist where it is totally formless. Reflecting like this, they simply practice for disillusionment, dispassion, and cessation regarding forms. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have the view, this doctrine, that there is no such thing as the total cessation of continued existence, i.e., no nibbana, no nirvana, no enlightenment, awakening. And there are some who have doctrine contradicts this. Don't these doctrines contradict each other? Yes. And they would, a sensible person would reflect the same way. I don't know either way. All right. Householders, these four people are found in the world. What four? One person mortifies themselves, committed to the practice of mortifying themselves. One person mortifies others, committed to the practice of mortifying others. One person mortifies themselves and others, committed to the practice of mortifying themselves and others. One person doesn't mortify themselves and others, committed to the practice of not mortifying themselves and others. They live without wishes in the present life, extinguished, cooled, experiencing bliss, with self become divine. And what person mortifies themselves, committed to the practice of mortifying themselves? It's when they do various ascetic practices, mortification practices. And then the next one is what person mortifies themselves and others. It uses the example of a king who forces others to kill for sacrifices. The person who does not mortify themselves or others is an awakened being. And then it goes through through jhana to the three insights, and then awakening, and then that's the end. Hello, Ronald. All right. So it's 8 o'clock. Why don't we do our meditation now, and then we can read some Dhammapada and close out. So set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Do a mindful scan of the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the head. Begin by placing your focus on the feet. By placing focus, this means to be mindful and focus in on whatever feeling or sensation is arising in that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. Move up through the ankles, into the calves. Through the knees and into the thighs. Up through to the hips and pelvis. Paying close attention from here on in to how the hips and pelvis impacts your posture. moving up the spine through the abdomen and the leg and the chest. Checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching, nor that you're trying to force it to be very straight. Either of those will cause pain and discomfort over time. Up through to the shoulders, checking they're hanging loosely. Down through to the elbows and hands, observing how their position impacts your posture as well. Finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning or slouching here or there. Chin parallel to the floor. When you're done setting your body up in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Do your best to just watch as the body is breathing in and breathing out. Whenever you get distracted away, remember to acknowledge, let go, and return, coming back to the breath over and over. Don't get agitated or fall to judgment when you get distracted away. Just try to let go and come back to the breath. Becoming agitated is the opposite of what we're trying to do when we follow the breath. We want to keep following the breath towards a more calm and tranquil mind, letting go of our clingings and attachments. Just staying with the breath, becoming consumed in the breath, not worried about all kinds of other things happening outside. Follow the breath all the way to awakening. Slowly open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, your body's position in it, reflecting on the state of your mind before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out. And while you do that, we'll read some Dhammapada. The Arahant, or perfected one. The fever of passion exists not for him who has completed the journey, who is sorrowless and wholly set free, and has broken all ties. The mindful ones exert themselves. They are not attached to any home. Like swans that abandon the lake, they leave home after home behind. Those who do not accumulate and are wise regarding food, whose object is the void, the unconditioned freedom, their track cannot be traced, like that of birds in the air. He whose cankers are destroyed, and who is not attached to food, whose object is the void, the unconditional freedom, his path cannot be traced, like that of birds in the air. Even the gods hold dear the wise one, whose senses are subdued like horses well trained by a charioteer, whose pride is destroyed and who is free from the cankers. There is no more worldly existence for the wise one who, like the earth, resents nothing, who is firm as a high pillar and as pure as a deep pool free from the mud. Calm is his thought, calm his speech, calm his deed, who, truly knowing, is wholly freed, perfectly tranquil and wise. The man who is without blind faith, who knows the uncreated, who has severed all links, destroyed all causes, and thrown out all desires, he truly is the most excellent of men. Inspiring indeed is that place where Arahants dwell, be it village, forest, vale, or hill. Inspiring are those forests in which worldlings find no pleasure. There the passionless will rejoice, for they seek no sensual pleasures. All right, friends. It's time to do our business and share merits. So if you are joining for the first time and you'd like to learn more about myself and the organization I'm building, Maggaseka, Student of the Path, you can go to the website listed on the screen, maggaseka.org, maggaseka.org. You can find out all the information you need about the organization and myself, including all of my activities. When new retreats and activities and streams and articles, all that comes out, you can find out from that website. All right. Now let's share merit. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha mehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, akasata jabumata, deva naga mahidika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanam. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Alright friends, so we have come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. And may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Which could be tomorrow morning for morning monastery experience. Could be next Saturday for Insight Timer session at 3. Or Sunday night for Suttas Monday in the Discord. Or maybe, if I'm around in a week, next Monday for another Dhammapalooza. So, have a good week. Good night, everybody.